Welcome to InnerTV. I'm your host, Althea Provost, and today's guest is Judy Carroll, a friend and fellow Grey. In this two-part interview, we will explore Zeta Grey consciousness. Before that, let me give you her bio. Judy Carroll is a Zeta Grey Earth-Human blended soul, one of many who have volunteered to live a life here on Earth at this time of major change. Her role is that of an ambassador between two cultures. More than 60 years of ongoing contact with her Grey family provides her a degree of authority to speak on their behalf. Judy Carroll is a co-author, along with Helene Kay, of The Zeta Message, and the author of Human by Day, Zeta by Night, and Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth, Lesson in History. Welcome, Judy, to InnerTV.
Hi, Thea. Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm thrilled to interview you. It's like two girlfriends discussing ET knowledge from an insider point of view, able to compare experiences and share our insight with others. Thank you for agreeing to be on my show.
Oh, look, it's a pleasure, Althea. I think we'll be giving people a whole new viewpoint with the two of us talking together like this.
I agree. So let's start. As an ambassador, why are the Zetas here?
The Zetas are here basically as universal alchemists to assist in the process of evolution of humanity. They've done this for a number of planetary cultures. What people might not understand is that evolution is a mind consciousness event. It's not so much physical in the human kingdom, it's mind consciousness. And for this to happen, we need to have more of our DNA awakened, which is what the scientists down here refer to as junk DNA, which couldn't be further from the truth. And part of what the ETs, Zetas and other ETs are doing is taking people up onto the ships to do this DNA expansion work, which in turn will enable people to access higher and more expanded levels of conscious awareness. Does that all make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. So have you been enhanced to enable you to perform your role as a human ambassador?
Oh, yes, I certainly have. I don't really look on myself as a hybrid per se. I look on myself more as a blended soul, because I look at this coming right from the soul level. When we first decide to incarnate down here on Earth, we're just pure soul consciousness. And what happens at that level, we make decisions or are helped to make decisions as to where we need to go in our coming life. And those of us who are coming here as ETs in this life as ambassadors choose to link into two planetary cultures rather than just one, which most people do. And I've chosen to link into the Grey consciousness as well as the Earth-human consciousness. So this started right back at the soul level before my birth into this life, and in fact I've done it for a number of lives. So I've been working with the dual soul consciousness for quite a while. And this gives me the preparation to be able to be a bridge between two cultures, because I understand consciousness from both perspectives, which helps me to understand it from both sides.
I find that when Zeta speak, or Greys like myself, we tend to give a lot of information in a very short period of time. And your book, The Zeta Message, on page 174, for those who'd like to follow along, you talk about the blue crystal. Could you speak a little bit about that?
Yes, that was a very interesting experience, Althea. It happened to me back in 1995. When I was over in the UK. We were actually having a family reunion, my physical earth plane family. I'm connected to the Rollright Stones. We have a family connection there. And so, of course, I visited there as well as Stonehenge and Avebury. But at the Rollright Stones, I happened to be standing in the centre of the circle right at 12 noon on the day of the midsummer solstice. This hadn't been planned. I didn't even realise it until I got home and looked back over my travel notes. Anyway, while I was there, I wasn't really consciously aware of anything more than just a slight energy shift. I could feel myself swaying as I was standing in the centre of the circle. But 3 weeks later, during a true dream, I was taken out of my body in astral form and taken back to the circle by a group of Greys. And they lay me down right in the very centre and actually held me down quite forcibly. And a long needle with the most beautiful blue faceted crystal on the end of it was inserted into my third eye chakra. Of course, I was struggling, and because it was hurting quite a bit, and I was lying there struggling, and I pull it out, it's hurting. So they did eventually. And after that, I woke the next morning with an actual red little crescent-shaped scar on my third eye. I could remember what had happened clearly during the dream and was amazed to find physical evidence the next morning. At that stage, I didn't really understand what had happened to me, but slowly what they were doing, they were actually using an acupuncture process to slowly download. They put like a package of information into the third eye, into the pineal gland. And this has then been allowed to slowly download into my conscious mind over the years to help me to understand what they actually did. And it was during that meeting when I was asked to start writing the books. So quite a lot of information actually that I needed to put into the books was placed into my consciousness during that process that they carried out, because it was after that memory started coming through of this conversation I'd had with them. You know, look, please, we get accused of not being able to communicate. Can you please write books speaking from the ET perspective to help people to understand, because it's very hard for communication when we're up on the ship, because, of course, we communicate telepathically. And as you were saying before, Earth humans can't always pick things up quickly. So by writing the books, I was able to get this information that they needed to get across.
And like you, back in June of 2016, I had a dream as well where I was taken up on ship. There was multiple species. I could describe every single one, including the woman that was looking at me. She had a muddy red crystal, muddy like in iron oxide or like the red granite stargate that you might see at Maru in southern Peru. So it wasn't like a bright red. And in that she had it located, that beautiful crystal, right in the same area where my third eye is. And
right.
And she was pointing to it, like waking me up, pointing me to that crystal. And it was that time that I started to remember after that dream that a lot of my work is to work on the subconscious layers to assist people in accessing and releasing lower vibratory states like pain, shame, guilt, and denial, to really get in there and purge, like you're holding someone's hand as you get into the subconscious layers, to elevate their emotions and help bring them up what you would call the human ladder.
Yes, exactly, Thea. That's the whole key to human evolution, is helping people up through those high vibration levels. But the problem is there's also a purging process that has to take place. And this is where people have so much trouble in contact with the Greys, because this is part of our work in clearing and purging the fear barrier that is stopping them from making this evolutionary leap. So,
correct.
Yes, that's
in this
exactly
interview,
right.
We're not going into any type of military shenanigans, because that actually has nothing to do with you or I. We're not linked in that way. And so I agree with you. That fear level is what keeps that communication or any type of higher telepathic communication from happening. Do you agree?
Oh, look, yes, for sure. People have to keep their vibrational frequency high, because positive telepathic communication is a high energy frequency. So the only way you can access it is keeping yourself in a state of unconditional love, or at least trying to be in a state of unconditional love. I know it's pretty hard down here, but at least try.
I agree. I mean, I've experienced telepathic communication while embodied, and, I don't know if it's just the way I'm hardwired, but I find that if I stay out of judgment being such a low vibration, it puts you right smack into polarity. I mean, I could go there, I have my days, but it's not a common expression for me.
That's right. I actually received a teaching many years ago on that very subject from one of the Grey elders, Maris, who I work with. And in this teaching, he spoke about how linking into positivity is an active, it's an active do something. You can't just sit back and allow it to happen. Whereas allowing yourself to drop down into negativity, he compared it to a jellyfish being washed backwards and forwards in the tide. He said it's very easy to do, but you have to take positive action to stop that happening, to keep your energy at a higher level.
Obviously, the Zetas believe in reincarnation, correct?
Oh, look, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah, I do too.
In fact, this is where there's a problem down here. The key factors that are missing in people being able to consciously work on their own evolution is that reincarnation has been denied and pushed aside. It's so important to understand it. I've actually been living a parallel life. Being a blended soul, I've been living a parallel life for quite a while. My last Earth-human life, yes, it was actually a Gypsy life in Russia. Because the Zetas and other grey cultures are very, how can I say, tribal, probably would be the best way to compare them to Earth-human cultures. And so often our people, when we choose to have an incarnation, down here as an Earth-human, we often do choose a tribal incarnation because it's a little bit more compatible with the way we're used to working. And many tribal people tend to have much more openness to do with higher vibration and contact with higher beings. And so we're much more comfortable in a tribal situation. So, yes, it was a Gypsy life in Russia that actually ended in a Nazi concentration camp.
Yeah, that was my last two was oh, God. I'm trying to remember it. I came back in remembering that one. I have to say that was a pretty traumatic time, but if you've done dark side roles or light side roles, you can then come back and teach with authenticity integration work.
Oh, look, exactly. We have to experience these things. I mean, that's exactly why in my first few years as an Earth human, I had no conscious memory of my grey connection at all. And I took this on purpose because I wanted to experience the fear factor that people have in connection with off-planet beings, particularly with the greys, because, I mean, we do look different. And I wanted to experience this fear firsthand so that in years to come, when I would be doing the work that I'm doing now, I would totally understand and be totally empathic with Earth humans who are absolutely terrified. And so I went through a lot of fear with my contact as a child until I started to be consciously woken up to realise, hey, they're not awful monsters, they're family. And my whole perspective then changed. But, yes, I totally agree. We have to...
It's the only way you can get to unconditional love sometimes, I feel. That's just my opinion. I have to give a nod out to Lavendar. She's a Pleiadian scribe and host of Starseed Radio Academy because she's the one that introduced me to your book, Human by Day, Zeta by Night. And Lavendar did so because she said that your description, your onboard ship activity, is very similar to Pleiadians. Do you have anything to say about that?
Oh, yes, look, for sure. We work together. Again, there's a lot of disinformation being put out that the Pleiadians don't like the greys and all this sort of rubbish. I just don't link into it down here because we work together very much in oneness. On the big motherships, there are many, many different groups working together, and greys and Pleiadians, I have many very close Pleiadian friends down here. I've actually been interviewed a couple of times by Lavendar, and I could feel a lot of accord there. We obviously know each other upstairs as well. And, yes, we all help each other. I mean, everyone has their own particular gifts to contribute to this mission that we're carrying out down here. And the Pleiadians have a more Earth-human look to them, so many Earth humans feel way more comfortable with them. And they're also like sort of cousins to Earth humans. There's more of their genetics on planet Earth than there is of ours. So that makes sense that Earth humans feel more comfortable with them. But, yes, we work very closely together.
But I've also found that the Zetas have been here for a very long time.
Yes, a very, very long time. our ancestors were actually known as the ant people. I've actually been reading a very, very good book by a guy by the name of Sunbow, Sunbow, who has contact with an elder Sasquatch by the name of Camus. My publisher actually sent this book to me so that I could incorporate parts of it, of course, with Sunbow's permission, into my book that's about to be released, Extraterrestrial History on Earth. And he speaks about 6 Genesis events that happened on Earth. And the second of these were the insect or ant people. And, well, not quite directly, but they are ancestors of the Greys because some of them have had grey genetics placed into them. And so we're very closely related to them. And they go back billions of years. So, yes, we're a very, very old race.
In the Zeta message, you talked about 9/11, and we're recording right before, a few days short of 9/11 again on the anniversary. And in there, you mentioned how the Zetas were helping people to cross over. Is that a role that many Zetas play, or just a part of your work?
It's a role that many, many of the Greys play because of the fact that people can die in very, very difficult circumstances, so their energy level is fairly low. The ones who generally assist with the death process are the ones people down here think of as angels, and those beings were present as well, but in some instances the Greys will play this role too. I actually have memory of assisting the spirit of a young girl. She must have been murdered, and her body was in actually a public toilet block. It was very unpleasant, and I remember going in there in my grey form and helping her to free herself from the confines of the human body. So during 9/11, there was a lot of fear and, of course, drama and pain and all sorts of very, very dark emotions around. So there was a whole team of us working together, assisting people to pass over, and those who were trapped and couldn't be reached by the rescuers, as I always say in interviews, for their family members, thinking that they died alone. Nobody dies alone. In circumstances like that, we will go in, or one of the angelic helpers. If we go, we normally take on the form of an angel so that we don't scare them, and we stay with them and comfort them. So no one died in 9/11 on their own in terror, in pain, trapped under the ruins. They had a helper with them helping them. Their pain would have been eased. They would have been helped out of the body.
And for those that are following along on the Zeta message, that would be page 197. And as I was reading it, I too have, as a Grey, have memory assisting throughout my lifetime here on Earth. So Katrina was one particular example for myself. I would go back down to sleep, and then I would leave an after farm and then go help the many, many souls to cross over because they were experiencing shock and trauma from that very quick passing. And when I would wake, my family, my daughter and husband would come over, feed me, and I'd go right back down to sleep again so that I can go do the work. And that happened for days. Very conscious, aware of assisting souls over.
Yes, exactly. It's the same here. Actually, the first morning I woke up after it, I hadn't even heard of what had happened, and I woke up with a really, really bad headache. I was feeling so sick I could hardly get out of bed. And later in the day, I was speaking to my friend and co-author, Helene, and her daughter and I were working together over there. And Helene said, "Oh, have you heard what's happened?" And she started talking about it, and she said, "You and Kira were over there," because Kira had more conscious memory of it than I did. And she had actually told her mother. And so when Helene rang me, I didn't know what was going on. All I knew was I had this really bad headache. And what it turned out, actually, my Grey teacher, Maris, explained to me later. He said, "You were linking into the emotion too much." He said, "You've got to stand back, just non-attach. Otherwise, it's going to impinge on your energy." And so after that, we used to go over there every night, and I did. I just learned then to stand back and not get too caught up in it.
I agree. I think, with my clients coming forward, a lot of them are just, we would call them light warriors down here. They come from all different races when I am doing session work, and a lot of them were getting caught up in the emotionality of the recent Earth transitions, both with the flooding in Texas and, across the globe, as well as the fires here in the U.S. and more Canes. And I said, no, it's very important because the human body, in my opinion, can only take so much stress. It is like it throws you down. And for myself, I just knew to keep going back asleep and go do the work. But when it came to my awakening time here on Earth, I was out, being very clear, very grounded, and getting back into neutral state. Otherwise, my physical body would take on the pain.
Oh, look, for sure. We actually get a lot of training in this up on the ship in the healing rooms because, we're healing many, many different people. We'll come across children dying of cancer and things like that who have been brought up onto the ship to be healed. And we actually, as Greys up there, have to be very careful. And this is why people claim the Greys don't have emotion, but we do. But we're very much like, say, for example, ambulance workers or doctors or paramedics down here. We're trained not to express that emotion because it will be detrimental to our ability to heal the person we're working on. And we have to allow our full energy force to be brought into play. So we have to block our own emotions to allow this to happen.
It comes back down to session work. If I'm crying along somebody, I'm of no service to them. It's
right.
very important to keep my field as clean and clear so you can bring in those higher vibrations and be of service to the planet. So we're coming up to our hour, and we're going to go ahead and turn this into a second interview. If you'd like to know more about Judy Carroll and her work, please visit her websites, www.ufograyinfo.com and www.thezetamessage.com. Thank you, Judy, for being with me at this interview.
Thank you, Althea.